We start the next session now, and I'd like to introduce you to Kreiser, who will be your chair for the session.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our second session for today's EKIN. We will start this session with three speakers. First is Guilherme Amorim Franchi from Aarhus University, Anina Vogt from Tunin Institute, and Anna Rademacher from University of Veterinary Medicine of Vienna. They will present us from science and practice what have we learned about calf content farming across Europe. Anina, please.
So thank you for this opportunity. I'd like to show you the status of our deliverable on the scientific knowledge on cow-calf contact practices. Yeah, next. Yes, first I'd like to introduce you the team working on this scientific review. So we have Ada from Italy, Anna and Susanne from Austria, Lucy from Germany, Marie from Scotland, Kerstin from Germany, and Margit and I from Denmark. Next. So the objective of this scientific review is to gain knowledge on the effects of prolonged cow-calf contact. So in our criteria, we consider prolonged cow-calf contact when calf and dam or foster cow are kept together for at least 14 days. And looking at the effects of this different CCC management on animal welfare, animal performance, farm economics, and stakeholder attitude. Next. And both dairy cattle and water buffaloes are included in our study. Yes. So here I'd like to present the methodology. So we started this review in September last year, and it's currently ongoing. We followed the PRISMA guidelines for systematic review. And here we have the stages of our review process. So we created our eligibility criteria. Then we searched for our relevant articles. We screened the articles in 2 rounds. First for the title and abstract and keywords, and the second round including the whole paper. Then we extract the data from these different papers and also perform the quality assessment. And finally, and that's the stage we are now. We are synthesizing the data and summarizing and analyzing the data. Only papers published in English in peer-reviewed scientific journals with the full text available were included in our retained literature. Of course, only empirical studies only, so no observational or review studies were included. Yes. We included the studies must include dairy breeds, crossbreeds used in dairy production, and water buffaloes of all ages, so from calves to dams or foster cows. And the studies should include at least one of these different interventions or aspects of cow-calf contact management. The first is the type of management, either dam-calf, foster cow, or hybrid. Physical contact in terms of full or partial, duration of the daily contact allowed, either if it's whole day, part-time, or restricted suckling. The period until permanent separation, we also looked at, either if the cow and the calf was kept with the dam or the cow or the foster cow for the whole lactation or for a limited time span. We also looked at the allocation of resources, if calves had exclusive resources, or if these resources were shared with the cow or with the dam or the foster cow. And also looking at the initiator of the contact, either if the system was calf-driven, cow-driven, or human-driven. And then we also looked at the effects of one or several of these aspects of CCC on the domains that I showed earlier, either animal welfare, performance, economics, and of course, for stakeholder attitude, it doesn't really apply, but we looked at papers in that domain, looking if they explored calc of contact aspects or asked the participants of these studies regarding this topic. Next. We use Scopus and Web of Science as our databases without any restriction of date of publication. Yeah, our literature search was conducted with 3 rounds between September and December, using relevant terms related to dairy cattle and CCC management and outcome measures based on relevant papers, including 2 previous reviews on prolonged calc of contact. Yeah, and also to be sure that our relevant terms or our search methods, our keywords and search method was correct and able to detect, to spot all relevant papers. We performed the test using 13 relevant studies where we could check if our terms were meaningful. And next, yes, and gladly we were in the right path, since all the 13 studies were included in our literature data search. Yeah, here, of course, I will not go into detail on each of the keywords, but just to inform you that we used a fixed set of keywords, and also in addition to this set of keywords, we also added extra keywords more related to each of the domains we were interested in: animal welfare, performance, economics, and stakeholder attitude. Next. Yeah, and all our search results were downloaded and uploaded in the Confidence, which is this online platform where we can perform systematic reviews and other types of reviews. And it's a very useful platform, so we can download all our search data, and then we can perform the screening and data extraction, and also quality assessment of all the papers retained. Next. Yes, and this image illustrates our workflow from the importing of studies that were found on the databases, and then the performance of the screening as I described, and then showing the number of studies that were considered duplicates or irrelevant based on the screenings. And then we reached the full text or the second round of data screening with 171 papers, which 56 of them were excluded. And Anina, you can pass the next. So here we have the reasons for the exclusion of these 56 papers. For instance, they included calc of contact periods of shorter than 14 days, or they were not relevant, or the description of there was no description of calf age at the moment of permanent separation, which will not be and not allowing us to look at one of the aspects that I mentioned previously, or studies that initially they seemed to be working with dairy breeds, but actually they were with beef cattle or even other animal species. No clear description of any of the interventions, and also studies that were based on literature research only or mathematical model simulations. So after all this screening process, we've ended up with 115 studies. Yes, you can pass the next. And that this word for the data extraction, yeah. Of course, that it was also kind of a learning process. So we didn't immediately start with the data extraction, but we had an initial template, and then we performed the pilot study where all of the team members practiced, trained, and also collected feedback, so we could refine our data extraction template. Next. You can pass film 2 or 3, and then we can show. Yes, and then we collected information regarding the bibliography, title and year, and then study details regarding the aims of the paper, the domains included, and the location, the production system. We also collect information on the animals included in that study, if they were in all domains except stakeholder attitude most of the time, and also information on the cow-calf contact management regarding those 6 interventions described earlier. Next. Yeah, and then we also looked at the results of the studies and information regarding the outcome measures, the animal categories involved from these measures, the statistical analysis, and the treatment effects, and also the direction of the effect of the results. Those information for the studies on welfare, performance, and economics domains. And for the stakeholder attitude, since they were different type of studies, we looked at some extra or different parameters, such as type and number of participants or type of questionnaire applied, the perception of the participants towards cow-calf contact, over conventional dairy husbandry, but not necessarily, key motivations or concerns towards this type of management, and also if the participants were farmers, we collected information or extracted information regarding their experience with this type of management, motivation to stop or adopt cow-calf contact, and the status of the system, if they are still adopting it or not. And if they were consumers, we also collected information on their willingness to pay for a premium for cow-calf contact-based dairy products. Yes, next. Yes, and now I'd like to show you some our partial results. The data synthesis and analysis is ongoing, but I can already show you the distribution of the retained papers across the 4 different domains. And you can see that animal welfare is the predominant one, followed by studies on performance, stakeholder attitude, and economics, just a few. And also you see that some studies included more than one domain. So looking at animal welfare and performance, or animal welfare and economics, or even animal welfare and stakeholder attitude, for example. And for today, I will show in more detail results from the papers included in the stakeholder attitude domain. Yes. Yeah. So this slide shows you the distribution of the papers to different geographical locations. And as you see, most of them are in Europe, especially Northern Europe and Central Europe, followed by North America and Brazil. And there was one study in New Zealand. And I think this we can already raise some points regarding, for instance, policy and regulation. For instance, like countries with more progressive animal welfare regulations, as we see, for instance, in Northern Europe, tend to have more studies exploring cow-calf contact or the perception of stakeholders towards this type of system, perhaps due to regulatory encouragement or consumer demand in these locations. And also we see that there is some research gap regarding, for instance, the absence of studies in Asia, in Africa, in Eastern Europe, or in other countries in South America or Central America. So indicating that a need for maybe a broader global representation to understand cow-calf contact perceptions in different socioeconomic and agricultural contexts. Next. And here we see the number of participants included in this type of studies. So they are basically distributed among 3 groups: farmers, consumers, and non-farmer citizens, which can also include consumers or not, consumers of dairy products. And consumers or general public were represented in 11 studies, farmers in 10 studies, and mixed stakeholders in 2 of them. And also we can raise some points or implications regarding these findings, that there is a strong representation of consumers' perspectives highlighting growing public interest in ethical dairy practices, which can influence market trends and policy. And also there were some mixed views among farmers, reflecting the complexity of implementing cow-calf contact, balancing welfare ideals with economic and practical realities. Next. And this word cloud just illustrates the different words used by the participants of these studies when asked asked about their motivations or concerns towards cow-calf contact. So, for instance, this word cloud emphasized very frequently mentioned terms such as ethical or concern or welfare, positive, or willingness to pay. And this word cloud also visually highlights the main areas of concern and interest, such as consumer willingness to pay for more, or ethical concerns, or positive views on cow-calf contact. Yes, the next one. So here, we have some other key findings of this stakeholder attitude papers. So remembering that the aims of this, of looking at this domain specifically, were to understand stakeholder attitudes towards cow-calf contact, explore the motivations, barriers, and ethical considerations, to investigate the willingness to pay for cow-calf contact compliant dairy products, and also investigate practical experiences and challenges in implementing this type of system. And regarding the consumer attitude, we see there is a general support towards cow-calf contact, and ethical concerns and animal welfare are primary motivations. And there is a trend for willingness to pay for cow-calf contact origins dairy products. The next one. Regarding farmers, as I mentioned previously, there is a mixed, we can say that there are mixed attitudes towards the system. Some are enthusiastic about cow-calf contact, for instance, mentioning improved welfare or even job satisfaction. Others are concerned still about for instance, labor or infrastructure to support this system or economic viability. And also ethical motivations are present, but often secondary to operational concerns. The next one. Regarding the non-farmer citizens, or it's similar opinion as the consumers, with positive views towards prolonged cow-calf contact. And the next one. And also we noted there are some geographical differences. For instance, in Germany or in Northern Europe, there is more support or showing more favorable attitudes compared, for instance, to farmers in Brazil or in North America. And there is also different views towards towards the cow-calf contact, depending on on level of education and awareness about dairy farming in general. Yes, sorry. And the next slide, the last one, just to mention that we are still running the analysis of the other domains of this study, and that we have in July to report the knowledge gaps on the cow-calf contact management research, and submit a scientific article to peer review in November this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Guilherme. Is there any question? Short question about Guilherme? No? So we continue with you, Anina.
Okay, good morning, everyone. My name is Anina Vogt from the Thünen Institute in Germany. And after Guy has started with the scientific knowledge, I would now like to present to you the knowledge which we gained from the practitioners in our project, with a special focus on the current challenges and knowledge gaps which exist in CCC. So the actual authors of the content I would like to share with you now are our NIP farmers and NNFs which have worked very hard to get this knowledge out of them, as well as Kerstin, who is involved with me in this project, and Jessica, who has done a great deal in developing the method, which actually is the innovation wheel. So, you know, we have 11 different NIPs. So in 11 countries, there's practitioner groups, and we have asked them all to stick their heads together and think about the idea, what they want to develop. Is there already some CCC practice established in your country, or do you have to establish this from scratch? What are the current practices relating to the idea that already exist in your country? And then what are the current challenges and barriers which limit the uptake of CCC practice at the moment in your country? What maybe knowledge, innovation, or resource gaps exist in your country which limit the uptake? And then what are potential solutions that could help with these, to alleviate these resource gaps? And then also what is the viability of each of these potential solutions? And today I want to present to you the results which we gained from step 3, which are the current challenges and barriers in each of the countries, simply because I think this will help us all as a consortium of TDN to focus where we should head next and where we can really help the farmers to get this going. So here is the results. Quite big table, or maybe move Guilherme. Yes. So, as you can see, here's all the different NIPs. And in Italy, we have 2 NIPs, one for dairy cattle, one for buffalo. So the B is the buffalo NIP. And then for Estonia, here the crosses are in Italy because in Estonia, there has not been any innovation wheel yet. So this is just some farmers' comments. So keep in mind, there would have probably been some more crosses if they would have had an innovation wheel. So this is not comprehensive. Yes, and also the whole table is not a comprehensive list, but these are the challenges which have been most frequently named or by the majority of the NIPs which we have. And you can see our number 1 and 2 challenges are barn design, space infrastructure at the farm, which has been named by all of the NIPs, and also a reduced milk yield, profitability, and marketing, which has been named by all but Estonia. But I'm sure if Estonia would have done the innovation wheel, they would have named this as well. So these are our top challenges with CCC. Then comes weaning and separation. So the stress during the procedure. We have concerns about transmittable diseases between cow and calf, and also other health related to mastitis being transferred by the calves, and also teat damage, what we have already heard earlier this morning. Then quite a big concern about shortage of personnel with interest and skill for CCC. And this was often related also to concern that about farm sizes, that CCC is more challenging in larger farms, which we have. Then there were some concerns about cow and calf behavior. This was mainly related to the process of getting a calf onto a foster cow, that this is very work intense. Also that there are some cows which are not willing to enter the milking parlor maybe, that this is quite work intense, or the cows are getting shy. So these were challenges or concerns that people had depending on the level of adoption in the country. Problematic governmental and other regulations. Anna will give you a very detailed talk after me, so I'll not go into too much detail on this. And then, of course, we can see for the countries where CCC is not as established so far here, we see that limited knowledge of CCC is, of course, also a very big challenge. People are simply asking, like, how do I even start? How does this work? How's the milking done in CCC? These very basic questions which you have when you have no knowledge or no practice example. And then on the other hand, in the countries which have more experience with CCC, we see many concerns about milk rejection problems, failed milkings at the robots, and also the milk recording procedure. And then for our Italian NIP, one major challenge they raised is that they were concerned about the fact that in Italy, many farms do not have a dedicated calving area. There are no calving boxes. And they said this is, of course, also a concern in the artificial rearing, but for CCC, this is also a very big concern. And this was also related to the colostrum management, which we have already heard is very important. So this is just the overview. I'll not talk about all of them in detail, but the ones where I think we as the TDN consortium can maybe help best to alleviate these barriers. So let's move back. So yes, the first one, barn design, space and infrastructure at the farm. What was named most often was the space. Like there is nowhere to put the calves in the barn. Where should they go? This was very often mentioned, like we have nowhere to put the calves that they can go to the cow area. We have nowhere that the cows can just go to the calves. And we also faced some problems in like, how can you create a suitable calf creep within the cow area, that you have a suitable microclimate for the calves as well. And this was very often related to the problem when the farms were using block calving. So for example, for a nip with the buffaloes, they say they have to use estrus synchronization methods there so that they all calve during the spring-summer period, because then the consumer demand for the buffalo mozzarella is quite high. So of course, then you face the problem that you have a lot of calves in a very short time, and then where do you put them all in the barn? And then for Romania, we also faced a problem like Dino has already told us that for the majority of farms, especially near the cities, they are kept in tie stalls. There was jogging paddocks sometimes. And then, of course, in tie stalls, this is also a very big challenge to put the calf and cow and calf together. So what it all comes down to, well, there is a significant cost to modify my existing barn to accommodate CCC in this, and I do not have any money to do this. So what knowledge and resource gaps arise from this? Well, first of all, we need some guides and technical solutions for CCC barn design, which are adapted for different farm sizes and types. And the good thing is there are some which already exist. For example, here is a very nice example from Denmark, which is just out brand new. But this one is unfortunately only available in Danish so far. So what we at CCC could think about doing is simply translate it, share it, get it out to more people, make it useful for more people, which will be very nice. And also maybe we can share some more ideas in these guides, how you can create CCC in a barn which does not need tons and tons of costs. So simple solutions which farmers have made work to make this more accessible to more people. Yes, then what was also mentioned by the farmers is that there are not many consultants which can actually help you with barn design. We need more people who can actually advise you on how you build a proper CCC barn. And then in the countries where not many CCC farms exist or none, we need pilot farms so that farmers can go there and visualize and conceptualize the idea of CCC. Okay, then we very often heard farm personnel as a problem or a challenge for CCC. And this was related that we already have a shortage of trained caretakers in the traditional system or for the artificial rearing system. There's simply not enough people to run the system properly. And then people were of the perception that CCC is even more work. You need more people for it. And so this would not be working very well. And so the major gap here is a shortage of employees with an interest and skill for CCC, because even in those countries where CCC is quite established, people said, okay, I need employees which really have a good eye for the animal, which see if something is wrong. You need to observe differently. You cannot only look at the bucket and look if it's empty or not. You need a better eye. You need to see, are there infectious scores or are there nutritional scores, like Margaret has already told us. You just need more experience maybe to look properly after CCC calf. And this was then related to the fact that many people said, okay, it's more challenging for me in a bigger farm, because if I have 15 employees, it's more difficult to get 15 employees on board for CCC than just 2. So very often this challenge of a farm size was related also to the shortage of personnel. Yeah, so what is the resource gap which arises from this? Of course, we need more trained personnel with a good eye for the animal people. And we also can think about clever barn facilities, make something a one-person job simply by good barn design. From Germany, there came these ideas of smart gates and gates which you can open from the back of the barn so that it opens in front of you. So just make it more easy to work in the barn so that you maybe need less people. The second major challenge we have is profitability and marketing, of course. So we know if you let the calf suckle quite a lot of milk, then you have a reduced milk yield per cow in the tank. And at the moment, we face the situation that there's a lack of consumer demand really for higher priced CCC products. So you do not really have high prices or premiums or subsidies to compensate the milk loss in your tank. And this, of course, makes it very economically challenging for the farmers. And then it's also not so easy to establish these lines because there is not many CCC farmers at the moment who could then work together to establish their own CCC stream in the dairy plant. What was also mentioned are the hindering legislation, which Anna will talk more about, but this was mainly related to direct sales, that there's problems with direct sales, which could be an option to increase prices for your CCC milk. And then also we have, what Charles already said, there's problems that we do not have a clear definition and a common standard and label for CCC in Europe, and that this is actually needed. So this is our resource gap. We do not have a common standard for CCC. What does it actually mean? Is it 2 weeks of contact enough to be called CCC? Is 4 weeks of contact enough to be called CCC? Or does it even need to be 4 months? Where do we stand here? Are we all on the same page or not? And then there were also some mixed feelings about a standardized label for CCC products. Some NIPs said, okay, it's time to have such a label. Others were, yeah, it would be nice so we can sell our CCC products for a higher price. But we want this to be really flexible for us. We don't want to be too tight in the end that we cannot do it anymore like we would need to do it. And also we don't like to have any more bureaucracy with it. So maybe we do not really want a label. This we're quite mixed in the NIP results. Yes, what also mentioned are tools for consumer education and involvement to actually create a higher demand for CCC products and marketing structures for fattening of CCC calves, because if we feed all the milk to the calves now, we should have a good way of getting money for the calves in the end, of course. And the last thing, which we heard yesterday also about, is calculator tools for CCC. What does CCC actually cost me bottom line? I need to know this, or I want to know this before I change my system. And I just wanted to highlight here also that there is already quite a nice economic tool from Scandinavia, which allows producers to simulate cost and benefit options for different management strategies. This is also available in English, and this could at least be a starting point to develop something maybe more country specific. So yeah, we have already something which we just need to develop it further and use it in more countries and translate it, make it accessible. So this is why TransformDairyNet is really great. Yes, milking and milk recording. So we have the problem that there's milk rejection problems on CCC cows in the parlor, and this also leads to the problem that we have a reduced milk fat content of the milk we have in the tank, because the milk with a higher fat content stays often as residual milk in the udder. So it does not land in the tank, and so my fat content in the tank is reduced. This is a problem for the farmers as well as failed milkings at the robots. So for some robot systems, if the calf has, for example, suckled 1/4 already, then the milking robot will stop and not milk properly. So this is a challenge that has been raised often, and as well as the non-existing or no consistent standards for the milk recording of CCC cows. In general, milk recordings are more challenging for CCC cows because you have to separate the calf before and for 12 hours, so it cannot suckle. And if you don't have a part-time system where they are used to this, this can be a challenge for you, of course. And then, yeah, there is simply no consistent way of dealing with the milk recording because of the fact that we have this reduced milk amount because the calf already drinks quite a bit of it. We have a reduced milk fat content. Simply the numbers are not right. So you don't get, you get kind of falsified results for your breeding value estimation. And there's no good way at the moment or no consistent way how to deal with this so that you get appropriate results for your CCC cows. Yes, and then for Romania, we have the special situation that also the subsidies are linked with the milk recordings and saleable milk yields. So if you do not have any milk recordings for your CCC cows, then you don't get any subsidies, which makes it even worse. So the resource gaps we are facing are here. We need to have some software adoptions for the milking robots, that they do not produce these failed milking errors for CCC cows. And we also would need a standardized milk recording procedure for CCC. And again, here, good news. Some people have already put some thoughts into this. But again, it's available in German and French and not in English. So again, we can maybe build on the knowledge we already have, translated, share it. So maybe this could be something in TransformDairyNet we could look at. The last thing, weaning and separation. Of course, if we allow cow and calf to be together, they create a bond. And then if we have to wean them, that is very stressful. So we have high stress levels of cows and calves during weaning and separation, which is a challenge for the farmers, also mentally in many cases. And then, yeah, people said it's also can be quite a high workload because it might be difficult to keep them separate. If you want to do it on pasture, they might break out and you just have more work during this time. So our knowledge and resource gaps are a guide on optimal separation age and methods, which method produces which stress for the animals, which is suitable for which system, in what age. And also we need further helpful weaning tools. And one NIP said that we would, for example, be nice to have a smaller version of the nose flaps because they like the nose flaps and they developed for beef cattle. So this was something put forward. Yes. This is what I have for today. I don't have the time to talk through all of them, but I'm just wanting to make you aware of what we are going to do next. So at the moment, we are in the process of doing farmer interviews as well in our NIPs, which are more experienced, and just ask them, okay, what's working really good for you? What could we transfer to other countries? We are halfway through the interviews, and we will share these results, of course, with you. And then we are planning a EU-wide survey, which should be released very shortly, where we want to have farmers, advisors, and veterinarians at the moment. We also asked them, what do you think are the challenges and barriers in your country? What are the best practice solutions that we can recommend? So please stay tuned and help us to get this survey spread, because it really helps us to transfer knowledge between countries, and it should be out very soon. So yes. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Anina. Is there any question from the audience? No. So we will continue this presentation with Anna Reitman.
Yeah, thank you very much to you all for being here, and also to the previous speakers. And now it is my turn to present you something on our subtask of the work package, which was on regulations that might affect cow-calf contact systems. So the aim of the subtask was to compile European and TDN partner countries' national legislations that might affect cow-calf contact systems, and to evaluate them for differences, to understand local barriers to the upscaling of CCC. Regulations were collected in the areas of animal welfare and housing, animal health, animal breeding, and food hygiene and safety, and also additional aspects could be added. Here is an overview of the regulations that were identified on EU level as being potentially relevant in CCC systems. I will go through the most important aspects of every area in the following presentation. And we will start with Directive 2008/119 of the European Commission that sets minimum standards for the protection of calves, which is also called the Calf Directive. I may add, we also have Norway and the UK, which are not officially part of the European Union, but still they were included because of the close economic relationships, and of course also the UK of having been part of the European Union before. These are the main aspects from the EU Calf Directive that were identified as being potentially affecting cow-calf contact systems at least differently than early separation. For example, group housing, space allowance, floor or lying area. They were then evaluated for being a potential hindering factor or a system inherent benefit. The areas that have been identified as being potential barriers, or at least need to be considered differently in cow-calf contact systems, are material and cleaning, inspection and treatment, floor. This is mainly includes the housing of calves on slatted floors in a cow barn, the lying area, and the construction of feeding and water to ensure that the calves housed in a cow barn have sufficient access to these resources. These are the areas that have been identified as being generally fulfilled in cow-calf contact systems, that is group housing, space allowance, and feeding. And I will give you now give you one example for each a potential hindering and factor and a generally fulfilled aspect. I will also come back to some of the other aspects later, and the rest will be available for reading once the report is published, which should be done in the next few weeks. An example for a potential barrier is inspection and treatment. Of course, sufficient inspection and treatment is necessary regardless of rearing system. However, observation can be more challenging and time-consuming in cow-calf contact systems. For example, the monitoring of milk intake. If you look at this calf here, it is early separated, it is fed by bucket, so therefore the milk intake can, of course, be easily monitored. Whereas in cow-calf contact systems where calves suckle, you don't know how much the calf actually suckled. So this is definitely a challenge. On the other hand, less time needs to be invested for calf feeding in cow-calf contact systems, and that may instead be used for observation. This has been reported from farmers in different studies and in different countries as well. There are also areas that are generally fulfilled in CCC systems, for example, feeding. Calves would naturally suckle 6 to 8 times in the first 2 weeks of life and 4 to 5 times when they are more than 2 weeks old. That means that the twice daily feeding as allowed according to the directive does not fulfill the calf's needs sufficiently. Moreover, calves are commonly fed restrictively with an amount of around 10% of their body weight, which is considerably less than what is naturally required. It has been demonstrated by several studies, and we have already heard this before, that suckling motivation is not sufficiently fulfilled in artificially reared calves, also if they're fed ad libitum. And also restrictive feeding contributes to the development of abnormal oral behaviors, such as cross-sucking and different other behaviors due to prolonged hunger as well. This means that whole-day dam calf contact systems usually fulfill regulatory requirements best, because there is also a risk of at least partly thwarted needs in part-time contact systems or foster cow systems, if the calves are fed restrictively, which is the case in part-time contact systems, or because of too high number calves per foster cow, or if for the reduced possibilities for suckling that sometimes occurs if foster calves are not sufficiently adopted by the cow. We now turn to the national legislations. The main feedback that we received from the partner countries was related to calf housing and management, which is why we also use the CCC relevant aspects of the calf directive to structure the information. And here in the table, you can see an overview of all the partner countries. And X marks the area where the partner country sets higher or at least different, higher standards than the EU directive. And we will now have a closer look at least some or the most important aspects in the following slides. No, it's gone. Now it's back. Some countries set values for maximum slots and or minimum slat widths, taking into account the smaller hoof sizes of calves. In this case, if farmers want to house their calves in a cow barn that does not fulfill these requirements, a reconstruction of the barn floor is necessary, and that would usually need a substantial financial investment and could therefore be perceived as a barrier. Related to what also has been said previously, the barn construction. Another aspect that was mentioned is access to pasture that is mandated, at least in some countries, and also according to the EU organic legislation. This could be perceived as a barrier as some farmers expressed unease about the thought of CCC on pasture, especially young calves on pasture, for example, due to concerns regarding animal welfare and also increased labor. However, the same and additional studies found that most CCC practicing farmers perceived few or no challenges or even perceived CCC on pasture beneficial for example, due to the possibilities of calves learning, grazing, and behaving on pasture from cows. So and we also saw this in practice, that CCC calves had more access to pasture than non-CCC calves, also if only comparing organic farms that have to provide access to pasture. And I brought a small video of cows and calves on pasture for you. I have to add that this was the first day in this season that also the cows were able to go out in this mini pasture. So they were pretty excited. But I wanted to show it to you how fast they learn, how fast they adapt. They learn what a fence is. They learn how to behave with the cows together. So, yeah. Some people are surprised how playful also cows can be. But yeah, you see here, they can run, the calves, they learn. There's a lot of social interaction, a lot of space. Yeah, so that's what has also been found in studies, that it's actually often perceived as a benefit by farmers who already practice it. Okay, some countries mandate, we also talked a bit about that before, the calf creeps. That is mandated by some countries, and they can be a reasonable resource to ensure that calves' needs are met, provide them with a lying area, feed and water, and adequate microclimate. But they may, in some cases, need a reconstruction of the barn, especially, it can be easy in smaller farms, but especially in larger farms, they may face a challenge. And of course, this could therefore also be perceived as a barrier to implement these. Then there's an aspect of the Norwegian legislation. It has also already been touched, the aspect that, calves from CCC farms are sometimes perceived as being more wild or less accustomed to human contact. And this risk of developing a weak animal-human relationship has been reported. And according to Norwegian legislation, calves must be sufficiently tame and accustomed to human contact from an early age. However, no differences in the avoidance distance or avoidance and approach behaviors of calves that have been reared with cows, in contact with cows, and early separated calves have been found. And this shows that the positive human-animal contact that is necessary to form a positive animal-human relationship can also be facilitated in CCC systems apart from feeding times, because these human-animal interactions in early separated calves usually take place during feeding times when the calves are fed by bucket or by the human, but still this contact research and practice shows that the contact can also be facilitated apart from that. Last but not least, from the national legislations, a regulation on protected types of cheese, for example, Comté and Gruyère in France was mentioned. This legislation states that milk must be collected twice a day and that cheese must be made from a single milking. This means that for farmers producing these types of cheese, no CCC system with once-a-day milking is possible. That is just, it's not possible. Most also CCC farmers practice twice-a-day milking, so it's probably just affects a very small proportion of farmers, but still that is just written in the legislation, and these farmers could not proceed with this system then. Now we turn to the regulation on animal welfare during transport. That may be of relevance if CCC farmers want to sell their calves early to another CCC or beef suckler farms. Currently, calves are considered fit for transport if their navel is healed and if they're at least 10 days old, unless they're transported less than 100 kilometers. This means that the early sale of calves to either CCC or beef suckler farms is possible within a range of a maximum of 100 kilometers, although some partner countries set higher minimum ages or lower maximum distances. And also the EU regulation might change this year. However, it is unclear if the changes will actually be adopted. Some of you may know that the proposal has been out there for quite some time, and let's see what happens. They try to fix it this year, but we never know. Yeah, then we turn to the regulation 2018/848 on organic production, and that states that calves shall preferably be fed on maternal milk and forbids the use of milk replacer. This may reduce the barrier to adopt a CCC system. And also in general, organic farming puts a great emphasis on species-specific behavioral needs that CCC is an important aspect of. We already have heard this today. Moreover, it has also been argued that early separation might be seen as a violation of the principle of fairness, one of the 4 principles of organic farming. And this all corresponds also to the findings from practice that the majority of cow-calf contact farmers are currently organic farmers, although there are probably also more reasons that influence this distribution. But we've also heard this, especially yesterday in a discussion, that it's mostly organic farmers right now who practice cow-calf contact systems. The regulation 2016-112 is on animal breeding, and we already have heard this from Anina, that some concerns of the NNFs have been raised, or in the NIPs were raised, that there are no, or it is difficult for CCC cows to obtain a breeding value. There are these guidelines, but only available in German and French. So it would be very great, I think, for many people if they were distributed and translated. However, even there, a challenge may persist for farmers with late weaning, as the breeding value can only be estimated, or you have to do a milk reporting before the day 95 after calving. And if you have a late weaning, it may still be a challenge. So it would be, desirable to have a solution for these cows as well. Now we turn to animal health. The Annex 2 of the EU Regulation 2016-429 lists major transmissible animal diseases. The diseases here were identified as being potentially relevant for CCC systems because they can be transmitted via milk and or by direct contact. However, the only scientific evidence or report of public authorities that we found that indicate a higher risk of CCC on infection or spreading of the diseases were found for paratuberculosis. And for paratuberculosis, immediate separation of cow and calf after birth is regularly mentioned in calf keeping guidelines as a recommendation to use infections. However, the role of CCC as a risk factor for paratuberculosis is still unclear, so there's no really clear scientific evidence. Still, the testing of pregnant cows and young stock and individual management strategies may be of higher importance in cow-calf contact systems. Lastly, we will have a look at aspects of food hygiene and safety law. Regulation 178/2002 that defines general principles and requirements of food law states that assessment of food safety must be based on the available scientific evidence. And we did not find any scientific evidence, neither scientific nor from public authorities, that cow-calf contact might have a negative impact on food hygiene and or safety. Of course, if the milk is managed hygienically, but this applies to all dairy farmers, that is, obvious. Regulation 853/2004 states that milk must come from animals that do not have other wounds likely to affect the milk. This could especially be of relevance in foster cow systems with more than 1 calf per cow, but we also heard in the discussion before on teat wounds that this can happen. There is a risk. Also in dam rearing systems. However, considering foster cows, they're often not milked, therefore being of no risk for human safety. But of course, precautions for teat wounds should still be carried out for animal welfare reasons. That's clear. And this includes that the number of calves should be fit to the cow's milk yield. And for all calves, including also dam-reared calves, close observation and regular inspection of the cow's teeth should be performed. Another aspect that was stated in the regulation is that teats, other and adjacent parts must be cleaned before milking. This means that it should be controlled for that the calf's saliva does not contaminate the milk. If calves join cows in the milking parlor, that is, again, it's quite obvious, but it can still happen if a calf sneaks and looks, "Oh, mommy, what are you doing there?" That's just a thing of being aware of. And the last aspect that I would like to mention in this presentation is that some countries limit the amount of raw milk that can be directly marketed by the farmer. This has also already been mentioned. This is especially concerning for CCC farmers, as direct marketing is currently a valuable option especially if there's no labeling scheme available, because it is possible to target the product to an informed, interested audience. And to adopt a pricing scheme that allows reimbursement for the loss due to the lower amount of saleable milk. and therefore regulations like this may hinder the adoption and upscaling of cow-calf contact systems. Yeah, to conclude, some legislative aspects such as group housing, space allowance, and feeding are generally fulfilled in cow-calf contact systems, while others bring potential barriers. These may include aspects of animal welfare and housing, potentially animal health and food hygiene and safety. In terms of breeding, the guidance that are available in accordance with ICAR standards should be translated and distributed. And yeah, it would be great if cow-calf contact systems could be considered in future policy making to avoid the unintentional creation of barriers. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention and especially thank all the people who contributed to this in the data collection and the discussion and reviewing of the report. The report will be submitted by the end of May and then will also be available for reading on the website. So I think it's a bit hard to follow all the regulations, and I just picked some. Yeah, if you have any questions or remarks, please approach me best today or tomorrow, or via email, latest until tomorrow, if there's something we would still incorporate in the report. And yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Anna. Is there any quick question? Does anyone have? No? Okay, thank you to the three speakers for this presentation. Next up, we have the introduction of the National Innovation Practice Hub of Italy for dairy cows and buffalo. We will start with Raffaella Finocchiaro from ANAFIBG for yeah, the Italian is for the dairy cows.
I think I will put my glasses. Okay. Good morning. So I'm talking basically on behalf of everybody because mainly Alessia has been preparing the slides and she's doing a very good job. And first of all, so we are a national association. We manage the herd book for Holstein, Brown Swiss, and Jersey. So when we first started to talk about this project, of course, our members were not really keen on this, as we already had seen also from other presentations, and also as Dino had said. So it is a kind of challenge to present to work on this topic in Italy. So, but anyway, we created our NIP, which is really working very well, and it's very active. And then we had like already 2 meetings. All the meetings are online. What we are going to present you now, it's first, we already presented the 2 living lab projects. So I think they are under review. One project is going to be in one of our farmers that is a part of our NIP. And then, sorry, I will put my glasses. No, sorry, I'm going back to the NIP. Sorry. So we had a first meeting with which has been introducing to the NIP, and then we talk about the innovation wheels that we did during the course. And the second, we discussed during the second meeting, we discussed about what was going to be the living lab, what was the interest. And then we also had one visit of this farm that we will talk later as for the living lab, and so that we presented, and is the one of the only farm that is working on cow-calf contact. Our NIP is made by 12 members, so it's 1 vet, 2 farmers, 3 advisors, and 6 researchers. So there is a lot of variegation. It's a kind of, I can do, is the, yes. I think I already said this, so it's very complicated to have a CCC farms in Italy and practices. And then, okay, this is what we presented for the living labs. So we presented 2 projects. The one has been done with the University of Turin, and what we are proposing is to control the contact between the mother and the calf, and they are going to use a sensor that to evaluate the frequency, the distance, the duration of the contact. So it's not going to be invasive, and the farmer is very open to do this type of an analysis. And then the university is going to collect data on health data, and also to see how are the different steps while there are these instruments that are located on the calf and the mother. The second has been done with a research institute that works on animal behavior, and what they want to do is to collect data on milking and lactation of the cows and the passive immunity of the calf. They are very used to do this type of analysis, so it's interesting that I also found a farm that wants to work on this concern. And what they want to do is also to work on some economic aspects of if they work on a conventional or in a cow-calf system. Then the questions were more what are the best things about the group? It's the collaboration, as I said, even though we never met all together, but it's a good collaboration. And as I said, the challenge is just to find farmers that are used to use this type of use, but for the rest there is no big problem with for the NIP.
Thank you, Raffaella. Next up, we have Yuri Gombia from NASB. My Italian is not good for buffalo, right?
Hi, everyone. I'm Yuri Gombia. I'm the NNF for the buffalo in Italy, and I'm working with the National Breeders Association of Buffaloes. Before I start with my presentation, I want to give a very brief overview about the buffaloes farming in Italy, because the buffaloes is not a black cow, so is a little bit different. In Italy, we have usually a buffaloes farm in Italy composed by 300 buffaloes, which 1,000 in lactation or 100 in lactation, and we kept them in burns, very rarely graze, due the lack of the available land. And one buffalo can produce 8 liters of milk per day for 270 days. And as mentioned from Anina, we apply the deseasonalization, we call it. There is the synchronization of the estrus, because the consumer wants mozzarella in summer. And the buffaloes is a photonegative animals. So a buffalo give you birth in winter, but we need birth in summer or spring. So all the milk of buffaloes used for mozzarella, and this could be a little bit difficult to apply a CCC system in buffaloes, because we have all the calves together in the stable in farms. So as far we have had 2 NIPS meeting. The first one was focused on explaining in depth the project, and we gathering some ideas or concern, such as the space needed for taking mother and calves together, or the loss of the milk using a CCC system in buffaloes, or the risk of some mutual infection between mothers and calves. And in the second one, we have a brainstorm about ideas for our living labs. Our NIPSI is very diverse, composed by 6 buffaloes breeders who use a CCC system with Foster's buffaloes, or who would try it. 3 veterinarians, 2 university professors, and 1 zoonomist is an animal scientist. Our idea for living labs. We want to study the potential reduction in milk yield during using the CCC technique. We want to check oxytocin levels in mother or foster buffaloes because we read some studies which show that in the cows there is an increase of oxytocin while the cows stay with calves. And so it would be a good point for buffaloes. Also compare cortisol levels in calves that grew up with mother or raised in a typical way. And last but not least, the prevention of suckling behavior, suckling biases is better than behavior. Between calves and calves when the calves can get separated from their mother. Because one of our farmers in our NIP that used Foster's buffaloes with calves have a high incidence of this problem in the stable with the calves when separated from their mothers. Finally, as I said, we have a great NIP, a functional NIPS with some skills and some ideas. However, we need to be able to combine all these skills and create synergy for really planned to increase the CCC system in buffaloes. Thank you.
Thank you, Yuri. Do we have any questions for our 2 speakers? Brief question. Oh, yes.
Yuri, just a short question. Did you say the daily milk performance yield of the buffalo 6 or 60? How much milk does the dairy buffalo?
8 liters per day.
8 liters per day in total. Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other question? No? Okay, so now we will welcome to the floor Daniela Haager from Forpose that will present us farm assurance for cow-calf contact.
So, hi and welcome everyone. As already introduced, my name is Daniela Haager and I'm from Forpose International. It's the global animal welfare organization. And I talk about farm assurance or labeling in cow-calf contact systems today. In the morning, we already heard that animal welfare is a key concern for people across Europe. And regarding a recent survey called the Eurobarometer, more than 90% of people believe that it's important to actually protect the welfare of farmed animals across Europe. And also 60% of consumers actively look for information about how the animals behind the products that they are buying are actually kept or raised. So having this in mind, labeling could play a powerful role when it comes to consumers and their purchasing decisions in the supermarket, especially when labels are clear and trustworthy. And one prominent example that we might all know is the egg labeling regulation, which was introduced in 2004 in Europe. And this shows that when labeling is clear, then it can have a significant impact on animal welfare too, as with the egg labeling regulation, the cage system declined a lot. So having this in mind, labeling informs consumers, and when consumers are well informed, they also may choose higher animal welfare products. And just briefly, because we had heard a lot about CCC already, so standard practice, as we are all aware in this audience here, is that calves are normally separated after birth from the mothers, mainly due to economic reasons. But even though we are aware of it, most of the consumers are not. Actually, they think that cows and calves stay together. And when they hear and learn about that calves and cows are separated after birth, they react quite emotional. In CC systems, it's done differently. Calves are allowed to stay and have contact with a mother and or a foster cow for extended period of time after colostrum intake. And this approach supports a natural behavior of calves and cows, especially in dam rearing systems. And CCC is nowadays still a niche and in the dairy sector, but is gaining interest as this project now shows. And this brings me to the topic of labeling. So why could labeling be also interesting in the context of CCC systems and farming? So as I just shared, the public awareness of CCC systems is really low or remains low, although we know a lot about it already. And many consumers or citizens believe that CCC is actually the standard, although it isn't. And this leads to misunderstanding and also misinformation, confusion. That's why an easy to understand and reliable label could also be of interest for CCC systems. And a label could further help consumers to find products that are aligning more with their values. For exploring or for the reason to explore how CC systems are already currently represented in the market, we as FOPHOS, together with the Veterinarian Institute of Norway, we conducted an online workshop in February. And we invited several label representatives to our online workshop for sharing knowledge and experience. And this slides just displays who was invited, but also have to admit this is not all the labels that out there, because since February we just found 2 more who are actually on the market. And we invited these 7 labels, which of 6 already are working under this set of criteria, and 1 in Netherlands is still under development. But the colleague who is already in the audience, also in the audience today, will talk about more of the label in the Netherlands. And this slide is just a brief overview of criteria that the labels had in common. So the labels set the type of contact, minimum duration of daily contact time, the weaning age, and the weaning method. And I don't want to go too much in detail, but just to give an overview that they had this criteria, but within the criteria, they are still quite diverse. And when we are looking or thinking about what could be a label, we thought that actually this 4 criteria just displayed in the table might be a first step to think about. And also, additionally, all labels had in common that they include all calves. So either, no matter if they are female or male. And when we had the workshop and talking to the label representatives, there were also farmers across the participants. And we were talking also about challenges that also just Anina described. And we can confirm that the challenges that Anina raised were also due to economic reasons and costs. Farmers said that this is especially challenging when they are marketing male calves. And also, as Anina shared, that practical solutions quite often a challenge. So how to design the barn best and how to make or free space for the calves. And also, farmers mentioned in our workshop that animal management, especially animal health, could be tricky in the beginning. But there was more to share, especially when it comes to labeling. There was the costs or extra time that might be needed. If you think about labels for permits or also for certification, or if there are audits in place, you also need to make time away label when someone is coming on farm and checking on you. But there was also shared that there is prejudice, especially of farmers who are not interested or are in doubt about the system. As we already heard in the morning, that there's a lot of doubts in the beginning when starting to talk about CCC systems. And one factor that also most of the people who were invited shared is that there's a problem with milk collection. So if you're not processing your milk on farm, it's really challenging that a dairy comes and collects the milk and also then processes it separately. Among the 7 labels that we had, it was only Denmark who said it's possible for them to do, but the rest, they either market themselves or in a different way. So if you want to create a label, it's a bit of a challenge to find the right balance. So you on one hand have to set criteria that guarantee some kind of animal welfare, but also needs to be simple and easy to implement on farm. And during our workshop, we also briefly touched on the topic of how to build trust, like build trust between the producer and then the end consumer of the dairy products. And when you narrow it down, it's more or less these 4 key elements. So first of all, the definition of the label needs to be clear, easy to understand, simple, and also trustworthy. And for trust, it's especially when you're selling via retail, it needs to be third-party audits in place because they independently and often unbiased or hopefully unbiased assess the set criteria of the CCC label. But third-party audit doesn't need to be a key element when you're a farmer and selling your own products right from the farm, because then it comes to transparency. 2 farmers actually shared that transparency is the key element for them when it comes to marketing. They just open the farm gates and welcome people and make visits and also engage via social media with people and just share pictures and it helps a lot. But in the end, there's also a need for a narrative, especially for the industry and the society to set up and to be in place. And for us as for PAWS, it's always we always refer to the One Health approach, which I think that also applies to CC farming and also could be part of this narrative. So if we are doing something good for the animals, we're also doing something good for the environment, for the human health and the environmental health. So this is one thing that I wanted to just say in the context of this narrative. So it's not only animals, but also human and environment in the end. And this is actually my last slide. And my take-home message here is that there are various ways of practicing CCC. But they don't automatically mean that there's better animal welfare in place. But it's the only way through labeling that we can ensure a minimum set of criteria. And with this, we can guarantee and help consumers to make an informed decision when they are at the supermarket and buying dairy products. And this might rise also trust and over the time can also foster collaboration and maybe also overcome challenges that I just shared. And so with the right support and with a strong narrative, CCC has the potential to become a mainstream standard within the next maybe 5 to 10 years. And with that, I want to end and thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Daniela. Is there any question? No? Okay, so we will welcome next Janina van der Drift from Kalverliefde. That will present us getting the market value of cow-calf content milk, a case example from the Netherlands. The floor is yours.
Oh, am I doing? Oh, sorry. I don't know where the presentation is. They're all yours still. Skip through? Oh.
You're going.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk a bit about Kalverliefde. And I already made a slight adjustment in the title. It's not a case study. It's more of a love story from the Netherlands. But before I share all the love and the romance with you, I'm going to talk a bit about eggs. And it's funny to talk about eggs, and the previous person also spoke about eggs. I think it's a really interesting parallel that we see, because it was in the, let's say, 1990s that the free range eggs were coming up, and I was born in the 80s. And I remember my parents bought free range eggs, and it was sort of a special thing, like, look at us doing good for the world and for animals. But it took a long time to become the standard. And it was only in the early 2000s that the battery cages were banned. And before that, consumers didn't know about battery cages, or they didn't care. And it was thanks to welfare organizations that this issue was brought up, and consumers started to think about the life of hens. And they started to think about maybe pay a little bit more for eggs, and farmers and governments, etc., started to work on it. And you actually saw that in 2012, cage battery eggs were banned. And in the 2020s, at least in the Netherlands, it's like 90% of the eggs that are sold are at least free-range eggs. And therefore, I'm asking you as a very knowledgeable audience within Europe, what can we do to make calf-at-food dairy be the free-range egg of the future? I think that's the question we should ask each other. And very happy to hear that that my colleague before here thought about 5 to 10 years. That's really fast if you compare it to free-range eggs. And I hope it's gonna work out, but at least keep that as a goal. So my name is Janina van der Drift, and I'm the founder of Kalverliefde, which is the Dutch brand for calf-at-food dairy coming from organic farms. And I founded Kalverliefde really out of personal interest. I am living in the rural area of the Netherlands. It's called the Green Heart, and our house is surrounded by dairy farmers. And I don't have any background in agriculture. I studied business administration and worked for Unilever, so the bad guys, let's say. When I visited a dairy farm with my daughters here on the photo, they wanted to see the calves, of course. And me being a animal lover thought, oh no, let's not. Because I knew I was going to see them all in a solitary housing. And I thought, please, I don't feel like spending my Saturday thinking about this and being depressed about it and thinking, how can we change this? How can we, why are we doing this anyway? And so I told my kids, okay, you girls go in the barn. I'll turn on the light because they were even in the dark. And mom's staying outside. And so I'll see you in 10 minutes. And while I was standing outside, I thought, this is so hypocrite. I have to stop drinking milk now. And then I thought, I actually don't like plant-based milk. So maybe there's a way out. So I started to talk to farmers who kept the cow with the calf. Actually there it was that the whole dream was created. And actually start to think, are there more consumers like me who want milk coming from cows that keep the calf or are allowed to keep the calf with them? Will they pay price premium? Are there retailers interested in this concept? And those questions were all born while I was standing in front of that barn. Just a little bit more about Kalverliefde, because it's really difficult to pronounce probably in English or in whatever language you have. But Kalverliefde actually literally means love for the calf. But oh, sorry, somebody wants to join. I'm just gonna allow it. Oh no. Oh, now I don't see anything. Okay, no, it's okay. So literally translates into love for the calf, but it's also a Dutch expression for puppy love. And why did I choose this word? It's because puppy love is the love between two young adults. And oftentimes the outside world don't take that love seriously. It's like your first love and it's not gonna last. So just wait, it will be over soon. On the other hand, everybody here in the audience is laughing already because that first love gives you good memories and you'll never forget about it, hopefully. At least, hopefully, there were good memories. And it's the same with Kalverliefde. So the outside world being the dairy industry, conventional farmers, they look at Kalverliefde. The brand from the girl that likes the calves. We don't have to take that serious. Nobody will buy it. But I think it's not true. I think we're really now at a point where consumers are saying, we want something different. We yes, of course, there are the very green consumers that go to plant-based milk, but there are also consumers who are thinking, why not share? Why can't we just take a little bit less milk and share the milk with the calf? So building on these consumers, I launched Kalverliefde. It's the first cow-calf contact dairy brand in the Netherlands. It's coming from organic or biodynamic farmers, small scale, so around 50 cows, sometimes more. We have, of course, we have quite a broad protocol, but the main thing is of course the duration of the calves, how long they can stay with their mothers, and we allow at least 35 days for the bull calves and 2.5 months or more for the heifer calves. We sell Kalverliefde in the major Dutch supermarkets, so 3 different formulas, and we also sell it via food service to the horeca, so the cafeteria, the restaurants, etc. I think it's nice to talk about one of the biggest barriers, I think. So I've seen already today quite some studies about all the barriers that exist, but to be in all honesty, money is one of the most important barriers, I think. And in this photo, you see Dirk Oosterhof, and he is one of the biggest pioneers on cow-calf contact in the Netherlands. He's been keeping the cow with the calf already for 20 years, and this year he's going to retire. And the funny thing, and maybe funny is not the word, but okay, is that it was only with the start of Kalverliefde that he finally got paid for the fact that he kept the cow with the calf. And it's not only the fact that he got paid, that is actually sort of nice ending of his career, but also the recognition that his milk is now finally being collected separately and ends up in the supermarket with a special label for consumers who really value his milk and the way he farms, but also his colleagues farm, and are willing to pay a price for that. So it's a very important aspect, this calf at food bonus, which I call it, because that really helps farmers over the barrier. And not all farmers, of course, but if you're a farmer, a mostly organic, small-scale farmer, and you've been thinking about keeping the cow with the calf for a longer time, but haven't really done it, or maybe experimented but not persisted with it, then this bonus really helps them to actually start doing it. And we recently raised the bonus. It was in the beginning, we started with 5 cents above the Demeter price. Demeter is already 5 cents above organic milk. We started with 5 cents above that. Soon, like after a month, we thought, okay, this is not realistic, it needs to be raised, so 7 cents. Now we're at 9 cents, and in the 1st of July, it's at 12 cents. And I launched that in the Agri-Press. You can't imagine how many farmers are now interested in keeping the cow with the calf. So it is about money. It's not all, but it is, I think, a very important driver. And we can calculate and calculate and calculate. We won't exactly know how much money or milk we lose, but we do need to compensate. And very interesting fact, I think if you have the right farmer that is intrinsically motivated to keep the calf with the cow, if you pay him more, he will not spend the money on a new tractor, he will spend the money on the animals. And that's actually, a week ago, I was with such a farmer from us, and actually sort of made me very emotional when he said, I'm so happy that we got more money. And I thought, oh yes, because now you can invest here or do that, or I don't know, go on a holiday. And he said, now I can keep the calves even longer with the cow, longer than the protocol requires. And that's goosebumps for me, even if I still hear this is the type of farmer that yeah, we want to help in the first place, let's say. So if you're talking about launching cow-calf contact milk, I have an experience with launching products. So from personal care product like deodorants, laundry detergents, food, peanut butter, margarine, whatever. I think it's very valuable to have this experience in hands of somebody who really loves animals, because it is necessary to know a bit about the market when you enter the retail world. And actually, this picture says it all, because you see that the owner of the supermarket put a little label on the shelf, on the cool shelf himself, saying what kalverliefde was and why he did that, because he liked it so much. He thought, I can't have the milk go off before I sell it. So I need to do something of marketing myself. It won't sell itself. And that's really one thing we should remember. Everything you put on the shelf of a supermarket won't sell itself. It's never, I mean, you see here pink packaging, and everything in the milk shelf is blue or green. Pink is deliberately chosen. It really fits the word kalverliefde, of course, the love for the calf, but it also stands out. But still, it's not enough. You cannot guarantee that it will sell, especially if it's a fresh product. It will have to sell within a week, or a entrepreneur, a supermarket manager will just kick you off the shelf and will never ever start it again. And that's, of course, a waste, not only in terms of food waste, but also, if in the Netherlands at least, if I won't succeed in this challenge, then nobody after me will for at least 5 years. So giving up is not an option in this case. And then knowing we sell this milk as quite a higher price point to compensate for the loss of milk for the farmer. So it's like at least €1 more expensive than regular milk. So the consumer needs to pay for it. And also something we need to keep in mind, that for a retailer to launch this in his store, to allow this in his assortment or her assortment, they really had a fear of negative PR for their own farmers. So they thought, if we include kalverliefde in our shelves, what will that say about our own farmers, and what will our own farmers say about us? So they were really, really afraid. And every step with media, I had to check with them, because they thought, okay, maybe she's a loose cannon and she will go nuts maybe she's an activist after all, and she will say something negative about farmers. So that was really, really important to really keep it positive. Another reason to keep it positive, I don't know, but if you know the Dutch flag, but it's not blue, white, red, it's red, white, blue. And this is the sign. I live here actually. It used to be a sign of when a ship was in troubles, they would raise the flag upside down. And in the Netherlands, when I launched kalverliefde, the farmers were in trouble, in stress. There was a big disaster. So all farmers in the Netherlands raised flags upside down. And it was 10 kilometers on the road to my house, full of the flag upside down. And in this area in this period I thought, okay, let's start kalverliefde. I was a bit afraid to receive a brick through my glass window. And so I thought, okay, how can we do this then? How should I launch kalverliefde? And it was really about keeping a positive tone. Don't moralize. Build bridges between farmers and consumers, and don't be an activist. Sometimes I'm thinking, okay, now I'm going to be a little bit activistic, and then no. Just keep positive. Don't show animals alone in cages. Don't show suffering. Really have to only show it's possible, and in that sense, be open to farmers who want to adapt to the system, but also get the public opinion behind you, because everybody was in favor of farmers. Another thing, and I think was also mentioned before, working together with NGOs. We work very closely together with Eyes on Animals. It's a very pragmatic group of animal welfare caretakers, I have to say, that help us.
And video. There you go. Okay, thank you. So the farm has been established in 1957 from Filippo's father, and now Filippo is running the farm. So they started already in the 90s. They started to move to organic certification. So that's very important what they did, and then. It's a challenge here. So today they have 4 farms. One farm is Parmigiano Reggiano, 2 farms only with Holstein. The second, then they have 2 farms with crossbreeding. So they use a program which is called ProCross, and then in this farm they do a Bio Swiss cheese. So they have a even more restricted regulation. And then they recently bought a new farm which is in the mountain, and they are moving to. It's a conventional farm, and they are moving to organic farm. So indeed, there is a good. They're really working on this. Currently, they have close to 350 lactating cows, and in total, they reach 700 heads. They use for the replacement. They use the farm that they visit, and then they move the animals to the other farms. And they have 300 hectares of extension, so it's a very, I would say, it's a big farm. So here we tried to explain how they manage this cow-calf contact. It's when we were there was one calf that was one cow that was calving. So basically what they do is the calf stays with the mother at least one day to a maximum of 3 days, and then they move to single cages till the weaning, and then they move in groups of calf, and then this is all the timeline. What you see there, when all the dry cows they stay open in all the reels of Parmigiano Reggiano. They have and also a store where they sell all their products. They have sorry, we can see also in the next slide. So, and they have a restaurant where they offer all the food that they produce. They do a didactic farm for kids. So it's continuously they are visiting people. And then here you can see this is an example of what they sell, and they are very well known. So basically, it's they found a good way to reproduce everything that they are producing within their farm. They have this logo, which is like the Haager, and so they thought that this could be like a hand or of the Haager. So and then it's like the hand that says ciao. So it's that's why Ciao Latte, the name of the farm. So it was very interesting to visit them. And Filippo is a young guy that is very happy to increase and to go on this work. So that's it. That's the farm. Thanks.
Thank you, Raffaella. Thank you to all the speakers and everyone here. This concludes our second session. Oh, yeah, so we have time, yeah. Okay, do we have any question for Janina or Raffaella? Yeah.
It's a question for Janina. Just if you were advising another group of farmers to come together and start kind of trying to make a cooperative like that, how would you advise them to start? And do they need money? Do they need investment? Do they need to chip in themselves to do this, or how would you suggest they do it?
I would really strongly advise to get another Janina, because it's actually an extra job to make sure that your product gets marketed. So that's, I think, important thing that you need. I mean, the way we do it, we've chosen deliberately to sell it in the supermarkets because that's where the Dutch people buy their dairy. But that also means that you need to play by the rules of the supermarket, meaning that the product needs to rotate fast. You need media investments, so you need money. So it is not simple for a group of farmers to do it alone. Let's say you need help. They need help. Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other question? Maybe? Oh. Yeah.
No. Yeah. It's really, it was just a question of it. I've actually lost the question now, but it was basically around if the concept of CCC is about the stress of calves leaving their mothers like at a day old or whatever. Are we not? Is it also a problem basically that the calves and cows will have a stronger bond whenever we are weaning them if they're kept together for longer? And it wasn't not necessarily for you to answer that massive question, but just as a comment, I think. And yeah, it's from one of our online viewers.
Yes, sorry. Can you repeat again the essence of the question? So if it's about the duration?
It's more about the fact that the cows and calves now have a stronger bond because
Yes.
we're keeping them together for longer.
Yes.
So is that potentially, or could that be a bigger welfare issue?
Then separating them straight after birth?
Yeah.
Yes. So we have no real knowledge about this because nobody has really compared this. There is studies comparing, I think 4 days after birth and 0 days, so straight after birth. And then of course the stress is stronger because after 4 days they have this bond. But in CCC, I mean, we have all these techniques or trying to develop the techniques for allowing a stress-free or a stress-reduced weaning and separation. And yeah, we have no scientific evidence from, at least from my knowledge, to say really that this is more stressful for the animals. And because we have all the other benefits which they have, I think, yeah, we are all in favor of it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.